Corporate Performance Improvement Summit 2012. You're very warmly welcome, and this is the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel in Accra, Ghana. To kindle a fire, a foundation to impact, revitalize, and expand the frontiers of performance improvement in corporate Ghana.
Continuous improvement comes first from within, that you're motivated. But then there is the goal setting that you have to do. You first set up a goal.
What I'll tell you this morning is that we are in an ever-moving, ever-changing business field where the system itself is moving, processes are changing, business styles are changing, the way people do things is changing. So the system itself is essentially changing. And so if your corporate institution is not moving up in the right direction, then it's not actually staying stagnant. What it's doing is that it is retrogressing, because the system in which it's wielded is actually moving forward.
To locate Ghana in the global economy, whereby we don't make excuses for ourselves, whether it's of a social cultural nature or whether it's concerned with values and norms that we operate. Because at the core is your survival. At the core, from our perspective, is growing the economy to be able to create livelihoods, jobs, and of course, a better Ghana and prosperous future for all Ghanaians.
This thing, he says, "Sir, it's not in my department. I don't know where it is." Zero tolerance on "I don't know."
Summit will strengthen you with nuggets that will help transform your organization. We believe that you haven't decided to come here is because you have drawn a line in the sand and said to yourself that you are accepting nothing but the best in your corporate organization. And we believe that you're going to have exactly that here.
It's the people who bring about performance in any organization. And yet, we want to look at everything else but people, but we want to hold people accountable for performance.
School, Viktor Frankl, Auschwitz survivor. Here's a guy who has seen people at their absolute best and their absolute worst. He says, you know what? It's not about power. It's not about self-gratification. The biggest driving force in human beings is the need to be fulfilled, self-actualization. Employing them
Leaders like a small baby who is crawling on the floor, and the family is sitting around the baby, and wherever the baby moves, the family is following them. That's a leader. A leader is one who is being followed not because he has the position and authority, but because he's a person.
Gentlemen, welcome back from lunch. We are moving straight into another very critical session. And this time around, we're going to touch on something that is very personal.
How often have you not seen positions advertised? And when 6 months later, when you ask that person, are you doing any of this that was advertised? The person can hardly recognize that that is the position.
At the core of performance improvement, what you will need to do is to tackle the areas of people, processes, and technology.
A lot of our processes are constrained by stakeholders who think they're customers, and by people in our organization who think the stakeholders are customers. And they require sign-offs and approvals and vetting and all kinds of stuff from the stakeholders. You know, stakeholders are important, but they're not the customer. Separate them.
Everybody has to own it. And so in meetings, we define what exactly it is that we're doing. What is involved in the process? What do we want to put together? Now, once that is done, we need to measure the process. We need to analyze it. We need to improve on the process. Because once we roll out the process and people keep practicing it, people keep using it, we get to see defects. We get to see constraints that are in there. And we see how best we can improve the process. We need to control it. At the end of the day, we're looking at how we're adding value.
Please open your mind to the change that is about to happen. The other is that there is no final destination in this continuous improvement journey we're trying to embark on. Let's keep that improvement wheel continuously turning.
We want you to relax, we want you to be expectant, and get ready to be equipped for a transformation with a magnitude in your organization. We're going to kickstart the program we're going to start with the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Dr. Joseph S. Annan. We're going to invite him to address us. Let's welcome the round of applause, please.
But let me just say that underpinning our thrust to support the private sector and develop industry and manufacturing is the issue of competitiveness.
It threw a lot more light as to the things that sometimes we either play around with and then just leave them hanging in the air as buzzwords.
Geographically, we are placed at the center of the world. We are in fact the only country that's virtually on the equator and on the Greenwich Meridian, making it possible to do business with Tokyo in the morning and New York in the afternoon, just as London is. So we are indeed very well endowed. Now we have to put the pieces together to make it work.
At a process level, what are the process factors that would inhibit the individual to perform?
Leaders should take responsibilities for mistakes. First thing I learned in management school is a leader takes responsibility for their misdeeds is his own staff or subordinates. It's you. The buck stops there.
First on setting up goals, having the same mission statement, and then it said the process by which you would.
Leaders should take responsibilities for mistakes.
And then, of course, we need to look at the individual. What makes the individual to perform? Well, if I don't have the skill and knowledge and the competence, then it's going to be very hard for me to perform. But why is it, as managers, that if it's anything else, then we want to send the person to training? Why, if it's anything, if I get a performance request, the people need to get retrained in
Unless you work at the Mint or the Treasury, your core product is not money. But if you do the core process right to produce that core product right, you will get money. It'll fall like rain. But if you focus on the money, you fail. You focus on the product that delivers value to the external customer, and you focus on that core process, and you've got a winning combination. And you get your people laser focused on the critical constraints in that core process, you have strategic deployment. Because they walk out of there knowing exactly where they fit in the big picture and what they can do to make a difference.
And getting them, as Scott has said, to own what is being, sought.